Oh wait. Oh my
There we go.
God.
All right.
Go team.
All right.
I also love that the first thing that people hear is you saying, "Are we live or not live?"
Are we live or not live? So we're trying a new tool today. So the live was scheduled and we just had an entire conversation, and I, the tech guy, thought we were live and we were not. So
It's always fun when you work for a tech company and can't get technology figured out.
well, we got it. We got it to work. It just, the problem with the live stuff is you can't troubleshoot it until it's already live or not live. So, all right, cool. So this is the caffeinated Q&A with Ghost Creative, where you bring your tea, your coffee, and your questions, and we'll bring our tea, coffee, and answers. So Sean, did you bring some caffeine with you this morning? What do you got?
I did. So I always get really excited because, this is just who I am, is I have a little tea friend. So I drink tea. I don't drink coffee. And so I steep some, loose leaf tea.
Yep.
This week we have some cinnamon orange tea from a coffee shop around where I grew up called Spilling the Beans. And so I always love tea that has a little bit of fruit, a little bit of spice to it. And so this kind of falls right in that ballpark, which is
cool. And there are two questions.
Yeah.
One, it looked like you had a tea friend that you ignored. Do you have a tea friend on your cup?
My little slothy friend. Yeah.
We have the same one. It's a manatee.
Oh, we have one that is a manatee. My wife is telling me.
Oh, jealous.
Sometimes people are too clever for their own good.
It's probably not good how much time people spend on that kind of stuff.
But here's the thing.
During Corona.
That's marketing, Sean, because now you and everyone that's going to listen to this is going to know about our manatee purely because they came up with a clever name, right?
Shoot, you're right.
Yes, it's marketing. Let's go. Okay. And I am a coffee drinker, and I have my global leadership mug, my second cup of the day, filled with 8 o'clock coffee, I believe, that my wife made, with an exorbitant amount of creamer. Coconut cream is my go-to. So I like coconut cream creamer with a slight coffee taste.
Perfect.
That's my preference.
Good. All right.
Yeah. So, all right. So if anybody is joining us or anybody's new, you bring your questions, you can type them in the Facebook chat, ask us anything about marketing, about business, about coffee if you want. I don't know a whole lot about it, but we need to get somebody on here that knows about coffee. I know Jack from Out of the Gray knows a ton about coffee. We could get him on here and inform our tea as well. Jack sells tea as well. So let you bring your business questions, marketing questions, communication questions, whatever you got, and we will do our best to answer them. Just to give you our perspective on how we're handling the current situation and how we see our clients doing the same. So,
yeah.
Cool. Do we have any questions?
Yeah. Let's pick up we got a question from Todd at the end of last week on Friday that we didn't have time to get to. So let's start there.
Okay.
His question, in terms of content marketing and posts, recognizing that some people are doing just fine in this current environment and others are struggling, while even more are devastated, what are some ideas that don't run the risk of alienating the very people that you're trying to connect with?
Yeah, that's a great question, because this is what happens when you have an audience that's this divided, right? You have some people that, like Todd said, are doing perfectly fine. And then you have some people whose lives are turned completely upside down in a matter of weeks, right? And I think that the biggest thing when it comes to this is just being empathetic towards all of those groups, but being very sensitive towards the most devastated, right? Because for me, someone that's doing pretty well through all of this, I'm not offended at all when people are showing massive amounts of empathy towards people that are not doing well. On the other hand, if you take the people that are devastated and there's no empathy and you're catering purely towards the people that are doing perfectly fine and acting like the world is normal, I think those are the people that you're going to alienate. So I think it's really hard to alienate people with empathy. I think that's really the thing. So in terms of content, I mean, just be you. That's the hard part through all of this is right now, generally nobody wants to hear a sales pitch they for sure do not want to hear a hardcore sales pitch right now. They want to hear that you care, that it's okay to say what you have to offer and how you can help people, but they don't want the used car salesman pitch right now. You have to be empathetic, especially leaning towards those people that are devastated at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. So next question.
All right, let's do it.
Is it better to over communicate with customers? We get this question a lot. And so it's one that we've kind of come back to. And it's interesting to kind of see people's fear in this. But the question is it better to over communicate with my customers even when we don't know the answers? Or is it better to wait until we know all the details before we communicate?
Yeah. So the question is really around a lot of, especially during this pandemic, you run into this issue where an organization doesn't necessarily know what the next step is, right? Like they're on hold, they're waiting for government regulations to come out, they're waiting for, advice from their legal team, whatever it might be. And I think the question is, the way I think about this is both internally and externally. Do you over communicate or do you let things hang in uncertainty? And I think that uncertainty is really the killer of progress and trust. So if it were me, I would way over communicate, even if that communication is, listen, guys, we're doing our best to figure out what the next steps are. But for the next 3 days, we don't really know what's happening. And I think that message internally and externally is solid. And what they think that that's bad leadership because the leader should always know the answers. And that's just completely untrue, right? The good leaders are willing to say, you know what, I'm not sure what the answer is, and I don't know what we're going to do next, and the but is the important part, but I'm going to find out, and as soon as I know something, I'm going to communicate with you. And either way, I'll communicate with you in the next 3 days, right? Like setting timelines for things in this uncertainty and saying, I'm going to send out an email every 2 days, regardless of whether that email is still saying, guys, listen, I'm still here. We just don't know what we're doing next. And again, that communication is true for internal communication with your team and communication with your customers, just the same. And the other thing is there are other businesses. There's another side of the communication right now where the businesses that are not allowed to do business, do you just stop communicating with your customers because you don't have a service to offer them? The answer is absolutely not. Right? Like now you should still, if your business is shut down due to the pandemic, you should be communicating now more than ever. Even if that's just pouring into people and saying, hey, we're thinking about you, posting positive quotes, uplifting stuff. Over communicating right now, I think is absolutely critical to be able to come out at this thing again on the other side better than what we went into it.
Yeah. And I think the people that I trust or the companies or organizations that I trust most are the ones that aren't afraid to come out and say, listen, this is brand new. We've never been here before. And we don't really know what to do next, but we're still here. I hate when somebody comes forward and says, we have the answers during this time. We're just giving you the answer for this kind of season. Well, do you really know what you're talking about? Or is this more like, let's just figure this out together? And we're going to try some things. We're going to have to do some things differently than you normally expect. And we'll get through it together. But yeah, it's much easier to trust someone who's like, listen, nobody's been here before. We're just figuring this out. Kind of come along the journey with us.
Yep. Yeah. And, this is a time where it's everybody can do it their own way, of course. But I think this is the time where leaning heavily on your opinion of how government should be handling situations like this in the current time, you run the risk of alienating people. And it's going to be really hard to get that trust back. Again, I see business owners doing it and maybe it works for them. But for me, I'm not in politics, and Ghost Creative is not in the place where we're trying to tell you what our opinion is. Because quite frankly, the honest truth is nobody knows what's going on right now, right? Like the reality is this is all new for a couple generations now, and nobody knows. So everybody that's pretending to be an expert, especially if it's coming from your business page, you're just breaking trust. You're not making people trust you more by saying, this is my opinion and this person did this wrong and this is how I would have done it. Well, you're not in that position. Stay in your lane.
Yeah, shoot. That's good. That's good. All right. So we do have a question, and I asked a follow-up because I don't know that I fully understand it, but maybe you.
Okay.
We got a question from Lois, And it says this: I've always been against marketing to pain points. I know people are in pain. How can I address this without slimy pain point marketing?
Yeah. So this is a great question. So marketing to pain points. So this is like the epitome of marketing to pain points is like oh, I can't think of a good example. I probably shouldn't say a business name anyway, but like the starving kids in Africa, where you're showing these kids that are like literally on their deathbed and saying, guys, you have to donate. If you don't, with sad music, some Sarah McLachlan in the background and saying like, if you don't donate, then this is going to happen. And so you're trying to really, that's maybe not an exact example of pain points, but it's really like leveraging emotions to get a sale, right? And I think marketing to pain points, it's not really about the pain point. It's about the solution that you have to offer. And knowing Lois, I know that she is probably leans away from sales too much. And so it's really like when someone has a pain and you can solve that pain for them, just telling them what you can do is your sales pitch, right? Like if I have a headache, Tylenol doesn't have to convince me why I need to go take Tylenol, right? Like the pain is already there. The only thing they need to tell me is what do they have to offer, right? So in these situations where it's marketing to pain points, I don't think it needs to be a strong sales pitch. And I think Lois actually does a really good job of this. It's really just telling what do you have to offer. Now you have to, sometimes to do that, you have to lay out what the pain point is, because you have to say, if this is you, then this is what we have to offer, right? But I don't think that we should be, there's a very big gap between empathy and sleazy marketing, right? A very big gap. And I think people that are very far on the empathetic side of it tend to think that gap is very small. And so with people, again, I'm going to say, I'll use Lois since she asked the question, but for people like Lois that just exude empathy, nobody in their right mind is going to confuse what she's doing and what she's saying with sleazy sales pitches, right? So I think the empathetic people really think that gap is small between the empathy side of things and the sleazy sales pitch side of things. And it's a very big gap between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's good. Yeah, it's definitely a dangerous, it's so obvious when people are like, let me highlight and exaggerate this problem to try and convince you that, my solution is what you need. That's a difficult road to walk for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And you see it, like the example I used of the commercial is there is some sort of pain point there. The problem is they lean so heavy on making you feel bad, right? Like you don't want to you don't want to guilt people into anything, because if they're buying out of guilt, they're not a long-term customer, right? They're going to dread every month that recurring payment comes out of their bank account if they signed up because they felt guilty for not signing up, right? You want people to, when the payment comes out of their bank account every month, you want to be like, that is the best $50 or $500 that I spend every single month, right? And you don't get there by guilting people into it.
Yeah, that's good. So let's kind of come at it from a different perspective. Is we kind of talked a little bit about like how not to approach marketing. Let's shift and talk about how you approach marketing. And so what do you think about when setting up a marketing strategy?
Yeah, it's really, we talked a little bit about this before, but it's really about knowing what your business objectives are and then mapping from business objectives through to what your tactics are. And, Sean, that you and I talk about this a lot, but it's really about creating a strategy that says, what are your objectives? What are you actually trying to accomplish? And then it's looking at what are the constraints to that? So are there budget constraints? Like, yes, we need to get another 500 sales in the next year, but we only have $20,000 to spend to do that, or $500 to spend to do that, right? So wrapping some constraints around it. And then it's about setting up your target market. So who are you actually trying to reach? And the biggest mistake we see here in terms of setting up strategy is people say, well, I'm trying to reach everyone. And the answer is, if you're trying to reach everyone, one, you don't have a big enough budget. And two, you actually don't know who you're trying to reach. When you ask someone who they're selling to and they say everyone, what it really means is they don't know who their target customer is. I'm
gonna interrupt you here a little bit.
Sure.
You always give a really good example of this, and putting you on the spot a little bit is you talk about like someone buying Nike shoes.
Yes.
And how they're not the target market, but they still buy them. And I think that's a really good illustration of target market.
Right. So if I apologize to my dad if he's watching, but I use my dad as the example, and I say, he wears Nike shoes. And my dad is slightly overweight and he's 65 years old. There has never been a Nike marketing campaign targeted at 65-year-old overweight men. Never. You don't see that man coming out the door at 5 a.m. with Nike running shoes on in their commercials. But here's the difference. When he goes to buy Nike shoes, they don't tell him no. This is where the confusion is. Who your messaging is designed for and who you'll take money from are two completely different things, right? And so when you're thinking about target market, you should think smallest target market that you can reach. So Nike is going after people that are athletic, right? They have a lot of high performance sports athletes in their commercials. They're okay with targeting that and knowing that a lot of people will still buy their product and they're going to take that money. But you have to know exactly who your target market is. And just a trick for doing this, and I mean, if you look up target market approach, there's lots of people smarter than myself that can tell you how to do it well. But one approach is to find one single person that would benefit from your product or service. And that's somebody that you know. So it helps you really think through, like, if I'm designing this product for Sean, how would I design my marketing campaign differently to reach Sean? Because there's lots of people that look similar to Sean in the world that you can design it just for one person, but it'll actually reach that whole demographic or psychographic that you're trying to reach. And so, yeah, you have to really hone in on target market. It's going to be nearly impossible. I've never seen a customer where I said, your target market is actually too small. That's the problem. Your target market is too small. Yeah. It's always, always, always too broad. And so you have your target market, and then you have to think about what your messaging is. So we kind of touched on it, but just because you know who your target market is doesn't mean you know the words that are going to link that target market to the objective that you're trying to reach, right? So, again, don't ever lose sight in marketing of you have an objective that you're trying to reach. And then the very last thing is the tactic. And, are you running Facebook ads? Are you posting on Instagram 3 times a day? Are you running a radio commercial? Are you running a TV commercial? That's the very last decision that you make in your strategy. And most people make that strategy, they make that decision first. So they say, they think about it like this: I need to sell more products. I'm going to run Facebook ads. And it's like, whoa. How do you know the tactic that you should be using before you know who your target market is? Is your target market on Facebook? Who knows? They probably are, but who knows, right? And even if they are, it doesn't mean it's the best place to go. And you really see this happening with traditional marketing where, some sales guy is really good at selling radio ads and he comes to you and says, you know what? You need to buy a radio ad. And my question to them is always, okay, tell me how you can segment that audience. Tell me how you can tell me that my target audience is listening to your radio station at 3 p.m. Now, the trick to that is I can't ask that question if I don't even know who my target audience is, right? Yep. So, there's lots of different details of this, but I'll simplify it by saying create an objective and create your target market and then create your tactic. If you do those 3 pieces of what I described, then you're, head and shoulders above the majority of the people. So objective, target market, tactic.
So I'm going to make you circle back around a little bit. Can you just give us a few examples of objectives so people have a bit of an idea of kind of the starting point?
Yeah. So I'll use us as an example. So one of the objectives that Ghost Creative has is we want to serve our audience better, right? And our audience is small business owners, and we're looking at marketing managers. To small to mid-sized level marketing managers. And so for us, one of those objectives is to serve those people well by providing them with knowledge and resources. That's where this show came from, is we said, how can we get information out to people without them calling us, without them paying for it? How can we just serve those people well so that they're all more knowledgeable?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. You can go everything from, I believe in selling through trust and not selling through sleazy sales pitches. So to me, I'm always looking for ways that we can build more trust, and giving information away for free is a way that you build trust. So we're definitely digging into that as kind of a core value of the company.
Yeah, that's good. All right, yeah, so we have quite a few people watching. It doesn't look like we have many questions coming through. So yeah, so do you have anything kind of in marketing that you think people need to be aware of right now? Any kind of cool things that you've seen, companies doing it well?
I'm a huge fan of just being more creative with your marketing. If the reason that you're running TV ads is because you ran them last year, that's a really, really bad reason. We see it all the time. If the reason you have a billboard is because the guy selling billboards was really good at it, that's a really bad reason to buy a billboard. Now, I'm not opposed to radio ads or TV commercials or billboards. I'm not opposed to any of that, but you have to know why you're doing it. And I think you kind of set me up for this discussion, but I think the big thing is understanding direct marketing and brand marketing. And since we don't have a lot of questions, you know what, I'll just take this moment to kind of explain how we're thinking about marketing. I think it'll be useful for people. So there's really two big chunks of marketing. You have brand marketing and you have direct marketing. Brand marketing is everything that Nike does. You've never seen, or probably never seen, a Nike commercial where they put a shoe on the screen and put the price underneath it. So they're not telling you go buy this shoe. They're telling you, we are Nike. This is what we believe. Like it or not, we are who we are. That is brand marketing. Apple does it all the time. Now, they might have products in the commercial, but they're not telling you to go buy them. They're just telling you who they are through storytelling, right? Most big companies, that's where they are. They're doing all brand marketing. Small businesses don't do any brand marketing, and it's a gigantic mistake, because brand marketing is what lets the world know who you are, right? So I don't want to go too far down that path. But then on the other side, so that's brand marketing. On the other side, you have direct marketing. Direct marketing is every single thing that a car dealership does. All the car dealerships, all they put out is, buy this car, factory rebates, until the end of May, you get this discount, right? All they're doing is telling you, you need to hurry up and come pay us money, right? That's direct marketing. Direct marketing is when you're trying to get somebody to take action on something. It doesn't always have to be a sale, but it needs to be action on something. So sign up for our email list, do this, do that, right? Like, they're trying to get you to take action. And small business owners mostly do direct marketing. And the problem is, direct marketing is really expensive if you don't have any brand. So if somebody has a really solid brand, I can do direct marketing for 20% of the cost as compared to someone who has no brand. So, if you need to get sales for your company, if you have no brand, it might cost you $100 to get a sale. If you have a strong brand, I can probably do it for 20, right? So I would say big businesses lean all the way towards brand. The biggest mistake that small businesses are making is they're leaning all towards direct marketing. So yeah, I mean, if people have questions about brand marketing and direct marketing and how to set up those two different strategies, be more than happy to help people out. You can drop questions in the chat, or you can, reach out to us however you feel more comfortable. But those are really the two big pieces of marketing that business owners need to understand.
Yeah. So Max Weber's asking to follow up, like, how does a small business go about building brand?
Yeah. So brand is a small word that has a lot packed into it. So a lot of times when people think of brand, they think of visual branding. So they think of like, I need a new logo, or I need to change my company colors, or that's visual branding is one part of brand. But really, brand is about like, it's the kind of like the personality version of your on the business side of things, right? So individuals have personality, companies have brand. So how do you go about building it? you stop selling with all of the words that are coming out of your mouth. You really dig into the question that we ask, what is the change you're trying to make in the world, right? What is the change you're trying to make in the world? And then you tell people what you believe at the risk of some people saying, I disagree with you, right? If nobody ever disagrees with what you're saying, you're not actually saying anything important, right? So building brand for a small business, very practical steps. Create a Facebook post, I would say every day or as often as you can, that just tells people what you believe. So you can do that. There are really simple ways to do this. Like very simple ways to get started are find quotes that exemplify what you believe as a company and post those quotes on Facebook and Instagram. That's like the easiest way to get started, right? You can also just create content that talks about your industry, right? So you build yourself as a brand expert in your industry without going and selling stuff. Be very careful with the words that you choose because the words that you say are part of your brand, right? So it's doing these little things. I would say in terms of branding, visual branding, getting a new logo is near the bottom of my list. And Sean, you and I have talked about this before, but I don't think going and paying for a new logo is what most people need.
Well, so we look to people like Seth Godin and some other people for really good questions to ask when trying to build a brand. And so can you just throw some of those questions out? They're the questions we use when we walk people through building a brand. And I think that'll really frame for people what we mean. Yeah,
that's a good idea. So Seth Godin, if you guys are interested, a book called This is Marketing by Seth Godin will sum this up way better than I can, but I'll give you some examples of questions that we're using. So the first one, a very big question is, what is the change you're trying to make in the world, right? That's a really big question and very difficult for people to answer, but it's worth spending some time thinking about it. One of the other questions is, if a year from now, I stopped 3 random people on the street and said, give me 3 words to describe Ghost Creative. Fill in your company name there. What do you want those 3 words to be? What do you want people to say about you when you're not staring them in the face, but they're talking to their friend, right? That really helps you identify what is the brand culture that you're trying to build. Some of the other questions are, what is it that you will not sacrifice no matter what? So come a pandemic, what is it that your company will not sacrifice? And write those words down, right? There's another really good one that's escaping me at the moment. What were some of the other ones that we...
One that I really like is, if your company no longer existed, what would be missing from the market?
Yeah,
I think that's a good question. Like, are you offering anything that's unique or that is kind of essential to the industry, however you want to kind of frame that for your context? But what's missing if you're not around, I think, is such a really important question. To be asking.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's the one that was escaping me. So if your business goes away, what is the gap that the market now has where somebody says, I really wish I could get this, but it's nowhere to be found, right? And if the answer is, you know what, if my business went away, nothing in the community would change, nothing in my industry would change, then that's where you really need to dig in and figure out what it is that you're doing. And that's all brand, right? So the thing with brand is, it's not about the product that you sell. Yeah. You can keep the same exact brand, the same exact foundation of what your business believes and the change you're trying to make, and change products and change industries even, because it's about what you believe, right? And so Apple versus Amazon, this is a good example. So Apple started out making computers, and then they shifted to the cell phone market. Now, what Apple actually does, what their brand actually is, it has nothing to do with computers and nothing to do with phones. Their brand is actually about driving beautiful technology forward. That's their entire thing. They make beautiful technology, beautiful functional technology, right? Agree or disagree with what Apple stands for, like that is what they are doing. And so when they transitioned from computers to the phone world, it was no problem because they just made a beautiful phone instead of a beautiful computer. Amazon actually came out with a phone as well. Amazon does not make beautiful functional technology. They sell stuff cheap and fast, right? That's what Amazon does. So when Amazon tried to say, we make a cell phone, everybody was like, no, you don't. You sell me stuff cheap and you get it here fast. That's what your brand is. And so that's where you can see even these big companies making mistakes on trying to transition to a different product that doesn't fit their brand. Small businesses, I mean, there's tons of resources. We can send out some resources with this for this, but it's really about knowing who you are, knowing what you believe, and putting content out around that.
Yeah.
Don't overcomplicate brand into thinking it needs to be some huge, gigantic. It's just part of brand, especially for very small businesses. It's the business owner. The business owner stating what they believe to be true in the world and the change they're trying to make. For small business owners, that's the thing. And most small business owners don't tell the world enough what they believe. They just tell them what they sell.
Yeah. All right, that's good. I think we're kind of coming up on our half hour here. So
okay.
If people want more information, definitely go to ghostcreative.com/live. You can sign up for an email there. We'll be sending out some notes after today, just referencing kind of different questions that we answered, and we'll kind of go from there. We will be back live Friday at 9 a.m.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, Sean, we should you can submit a question to us. You don't have to wait until the live show to submit a question, right? You can message us on Facebook. You can send an email to us. You can go to our website and find our email address as ghostcreative.com. But send the questions in however you want, however it's easiest. I know that Tuesday at 9 a.m. doesn't always work. Friday at 9 a.m. doesn't always work. So send us questions whenever you want, and we'll be sure to answer them on the show.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Well, this is Caffeinated Q&A with Josh and Sean. We are I'm gonna go finish my coffee.
I'm gonna go have fun with my sloth friend.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see ya.